Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Bergen, and today we are back for another chart stream. It's been a long time. Hopefully my microphone's okay. I do need some external adjudication on this because there's some settings changed and I don't know if it sounds the same, so obviously if you're hearing it and it sounds good, brilliant, say so. Hopefully you guys have been doing well. Hopefully you guys have been, trading the utmost capacity. You've been winning all your trades. I think it's been going well. Obviously, I did talk in the OG group about my thoughts on Bitcoin pretty much currently, and it kind of completely backfired with us falling below certain equilibriums. But I've gone back to the drawing board, and I do have a very, I don't know how to say it. A very concerning, in my personal opinion. Again, this is obviously opinion. None of this is financial advice. None of this is, anything related to me. I've not gone 4 years of training in charts, and I know exactly what I'm doing. This is my opinion, and this is just me, by myself. Okay, so please do not take any of this as advice. But other than that, I think we're doing well. I think we are in a period of time where we're getting very close to the scenario of actually having this massive foreseen pump, which everyone's waiting for. But anyway, whatever. I'm yapping. We'll get to it when we get to it. Hope you guys are doing well. I will look at the chats in a second. Anyway, 94,727 right now for Bitcoin, so not doing too badly. A bit of a move down, but nothing too concerning. Again, things may change depending on what I talk about in the charts in a second, which obviously we'll get onto. So 0.28% on the 1 hour. No, it doesn't really matter. It's 3 minutes. It doesn't really matter. 0.71 24 hour and 0.25 on the 7 day. So it kind of, there hasn't really been much outcome of the last 7 days movement. Again, not saying we haven't gone up or down, because obviously we have, but in terms of the actual resultants of the entirety of now, we haven't actually done anything in terms of a substantial price move. Obviously we have had moves within this 7 day period, but just saying, we haven't actually done too much. Ethereum 1,800, pretty pants. And to be fair, my main thing I do look at again is Bitcoin. So a lot of the things, again, I will be looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum and Solana in this stream. But Ethereum and Solana I do not keep up on as much as I do on Bitcoin. So again, some of the things will be fresh to my eyes. But 1,800 doesn't sound too crazy. Again, neither at 146 for Solana even doesn't actually sound too crazy. It doesn't sound like a crazy price move. But doesn't sound, for Solana's case anyway. I think we were actually at a low point, so I think there has been moving upwards. Again, I'm trying to look at this part over here. Not really too much movement on the 7 day. Again, we will get onto it. I haven't looked at the Solana chart in a while though, so we will see. Also, some people in the chat now. I will ask again, is the microphone, it doesn't sound like metally or anything, because there's some settings changed, and I don't know if it sounds the same. So yeah, appreciate that. Anyway, let's see winners and losers. Just see what's going on. Who's winning? Form or form? Why is there form and 4? Right, okay, that makes sense. Okay, there's a rebrand. I want to see who's losing. You know what? No, I don't care about who's winning. I want to see who's having it the worst time. Well, coin, we like to see that. We do like to see that. Where's my friend though? Where's the friendly? Where is it? Oh, wow, it's not losing. Huh. Normally, I would see it in the losing area. Was it Thor? Was it Thor chain? I'm pretty sure it's Thor chain. Anyway, doesn't matter. 7 day, let's see really quickly before we move on. Yeah, just a few things here. There's a big thing. What was it again? You know what? I don't know. I'm wasting time. Let's just get onto it. Okay, I really just want to get into it. But before we do, let's make sure the timer is actually set. I've just hidden it. There we go. Perfect. Sounds good. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so let's actually get into the charts. Okay, so I'll give the general talk. I'm not going to give the full thing. Yeah, I'm gonna just look at what we've actually done over the last while. It's been a long time since I've done a training stream, so it'll be quite a few. Majoritively not too long though, to be fair. Majority just this. Again, I'm on the weekly, let's be fair. But how I'm feeling so far in our situation. And again, regardless of what I'm saying, I do feel good. However, I won't, because I do want to talk, especially this kind of big guy right there. It's kind of a forewarning of how I'm feeling. I'm just going to do that. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, weekly, in theory, not looking too bad. Again, I will go on to what I'm saying. And, in a real scenario, I did talk about this, though. on probably one of the Friday streams or whenever I looked at Bitcoin, or cause again, I haven't done a trading stream in a while, but I have looked at the charts over Friday streams and whatnot. So I have given my opinion on this. This is very similar to this case down here. What I will say is the idea that we're printing above equilibrium on the outer rim of it on this range is obviously brilliant, and I'm very happy about that, and it's what we need to do, because again, this is a relative weekly. Also have this, this actually helps a lot. I will talk about this in a second, as how it's related to, because I say all the time, oh, this is the weekly range, but it doesn't mean anything to you guys, because this is my thing. So I will talk about this in a second, but anyway, the main point of this equilibrium and why I was happy about this candle, which I believe I not alluded to per se, but talked about either on the Friday before or within this candle as we're moving up, what we need to do. I can't remember which case that is. The main thing is printing above these and stay, because again, the wicks obviously are very important. Wicks kind of do the damage, but the candle bodies are really where the story is kind of being held, and that is obviously where, we need to print above this, we need to do this, and this, and the majority of things, if you look at whatever you look at, whatever strategy you look at, and ideology, for the charts, and you see a lot of the ones for the case of changing trend and kind of changing character, or whatever you want to say, a lot of it, all of it just comes from the body. So again, the importance of printing above places and certain stuff. Let me look at the chat. Let me bring this up on my main monitor quickly. Kishan, I'll read the chat actually. I want to say hello to everyone. Obviously, Mike is here in the stream. Shout out to him. Kishan, KV, shout out to you. Both, even to you both. Kishan, shout out to you though. Welcome back, Kishan. Appreciate it, man. Let me move that to the side. Yeah, appreciate it, Kishan. Shout out to you, man. Really, really big shout out to you. Anyway, like I was saying, the main, obviously, main shtick of this and what we needed to do was obviously print above this, and we did that very nicely. You see with this candle, obviously the bottom of the body, again, you can't really help that. Again, that's the candle, the print. This is kind of the intermediary of, okay, now we're printing above. We haven't, this is kind of, I think of it as more of an intermediary where, okay, I believe as I was talking, one of the streams before on this candle in particular, on the weekly, that obviously I didn't think we were going to print above it, and I think that the next week would be this kind of interliminary, whatever you want to say, candle, which would be the case where it now has the step upwards to then be in the next range up, which brings us towards 118k and all this big pizzazz thing going on up here. But yeah, again, obviously we've had that intermediate candle. I don't think it necessarily means we are now in clear waters and now we're going to come all the way up to 125k, this, that, the other, next stop 200k. I don't think that, and obviously this is the main reason why I don't think that is something I'm going to look at in a second for Bitcoin, which is kind of my big story, I suppose. But yeah, that good main candle, again, doesn't necessarily mean we're out the waters, like I said, but I do like to see that. Let's move down though. I do want to look at the daily. I want to see kind of what's going on, and when this draws with my lines, and I don't like using VibTool because it takes too much time to draw everything, and you have to calculate the range size. I don't know if I shut my mic then. I don't know why it's taking so long. There's no way to take too long. There we go, perfect. Actually, you know what? I'll take it one step down. Even though it might reprint, I'll do the 4 hour. 4 hour can show it pretty nicely. And now this range, I am actually on the right range. Never mind. Ignore me. So this again, I have talked about this a few times. Also, I know people didn't like light mode because it was hard to recognize what was going on with the candles, and I was on dark mode for a while, but I don't know what it is. I have a gripe with the dark mode. It just it looks clearer when it's on a white background, but I did darken the candle, so hopefully you guys can see it a bit nicer. I know it might be a bit harder to see, so I do apologize, but it makes it easier for me. But anyway, as I was saying, what was I saying? Yeah, I was talking about this. I was trying to make sure. Yeah, there we go. The equilibrium. What I was talking about. So the main thing, I talked about this so many times before, and if you've been on any of my streams, you'll probably remember a scenario I've talked about, the way the equilibrium works, which is, okay, you've got the main equilibrium, which is this range down here. Obviously the main midpoint being 0.5, but again, nothing is ever pinpoint accurate, so you do have ranges. That's the majority of the idea is, you have a range of an area, and the outer rim of that range, going on to this, is actually still part of the equilibrium. Again, it might get to a point where it's like, okay, well, what about the next range upwards? Why is that not equilibrium? you can't have the entire thing be equilibrium because then it's not going to work, is it? But still, this is still part of the equilibrium. It majority comes from the fact that these ranges are fractal, and the idea that when you go a range upwards, you still have the equilibrium. And I can actually show that, which is the reason why I was saying ignore me. Then can I get this out of my way? If we draw the next range upwards, you will see what I'm talking about. There we go. So you can see now this next range upwards is actually printing the range higher. And again, this range, as the range goes upwards, they have less impact on certain time frames, because again, you have to, the higher the range, the higher the time frame, kinda, not exactly, but general idea of it. So you can see that the midpoint is still the same, because the way it cascades downwards, there's still points where they meet, but you can see the main range of the equilibrium is higher. So all those words I've just said, why am I saying them? Because I wanted to zoom in on the idea that we're sitting really nicely at equilibrium. I'm trying to, when someone makes a movie or a book, they really try and think about the emotions of the reader or the viewer. And I'm trying to do that right now with the chart. I'm trying to really build up this emotional idea that, okay, we're doing really well in Bitcoin, because I really am. I'm going to try and take the rug under your feet in a minute, because I do have something negative. And again, this is opinion. This might not be true, this or the other. This is an idea. This is a setup. This isn't this isn't some arbitrary data point which is going to make the price go up $1,000. This is a setup which is part of my structure, which could or could not happen. Again, this is not financial advice. Anyway, again, emotional reading. Let's go. We're doing so well in Bitcoin. We're sitting in this equilibrium nicely. I'm going to start to zoom down now because we're a bit high. So actually, you know what? I can point out these because I don't know if any of you guys have wondered. Window was creaking, it was making a weird noise. When I talk about, okay, this range is on the weekly, this is the weekly range. The way this works is it goes off average, the average weekly range. Okay, so these are the numbers here. Again, a lot of numbers, they might not mean a lot to you right now. Basically, the way it works, again, this is just something to give you some lore of the ranges. They work on the average range of the week or the month, and basically the idea is the amount you can move on average. You should line that up with the range, so you should go from high to low or low to high. You shouldn't really be sitting within one range, so that's kind of the general idea, and these numbers help to kind of roughly guide you into finding a number, which obviously in this case, for example, the average weekly range is a 6561, and if we go to that, but you can go range up and range down, which is what I do quite often, which I will be doing in a second. So if you go to this, the general idea is you can sit at high to low or low to high, or from like low to this is why I want to do a range upwards, and is what I'm going to be talking about in a second, is this idea that we've come from low to high. Obviously this kind of is a bit zoomed out. Again, the higher ranges you go, realistically the general concept should be the higher time frame you need to be on for it to match. So you can see we had a really nice low here, really nice high here. So you can see it's kind of had this mirror effect where we've moved, pretty nicely in between, had a low to a high with a intermediary in the middle. So doing, that's kind of the way you look at the ranges. Anyway, now that I'm on this range, I think I want to use this range. Yeah, so main point out of the way, we've talked about equilibrium. Now this range still has equilibrium. You can see on the 88560. Now before the stream, I was obviously setting this up and I was drawing the lines and I was making sure, okay, I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about, because Bitcoin's the prize show. Okay, I go to Ethereum, I go to Solana, I mumble under my breath a bit, I just say some random words, and then all of a sudden the chart appears, and then I say some words and some numbers, and then we move on. But obviously Bitcoin's where the prize is for, or the prize show, prize whatever. I'm trying to think of a nice word, weren't it? What's it called? There's like a really obscure thing I've just thought of, which I can't think of the entire thing. It's like the fat goose or something. The big show, whatever. I need to move on. I'm talking. Yeah. So again, I before the stream started, I was trying to make sure I knew where I roughly thought we should go, and where we were kind of sitting at in comparison to that. Main thing, I looked at this low again in our range. We're kind of moving upwards. I was like, okay, how would we have to break out of this current scenario we're in? Because technically we haven't come below the low yet, because it is quite a low there. Obviously if you got candle buzz, I suppose, but you don't really do that. You print through the low to then start becoming into a bear trend. So we haven't done that yet, which is not a bad thing. It doesn't necessarily mean we're still doing good here, but again, I'm trying to be reserved with my positive words, because I do have something really big at the minute. Anyway, So I was seeing this, I was like, okay, cool, we've had this move, we had this massive movable, this highs, and then we moved back down again and also we touched this high here for this rejection block kind of print here. Really good. And also we formed an order block in here as well, and then obviously we moved away from it. Not bad. Yeah, really good there. Okay, nice move. And now where we're sitting is with this fair value gap printed. Obviously, fair value gap area, fair value gap candle, gap here, formed with this low, start to move back up into it. You know, general idea. You know, moving pretty nicely. So what I was going to talk about, and my main point for Bitcoin was going to be 88.5. That's where I think we're going to go to, which is also, as we cascade, like I said, everything cascades. If we go to the daily-ish time frame for the ranges, we can see it's still the midpoint, and we have all these equilibriums, and we're sitting on the top of it, not doing too badly. And then we go up one more, obviously, which is the wider range, just like maybe a weekly range. We still sit here, and we still see equilibrium. We still sit at this area. Obviously, I do want to point out with this outer rim of the equilibrium, sit about 83, 83.2. Just want to point out that is also an area of support. And if we go up one more time, I think there is also the wider rim on this area, which is still 83. So again, that is a common area. The common areas we had are going to be this 88.5 area for equilibrium, where we are right now in 93. 93.8, 90, 90k, 88, 86, 83. We've got a few prices on the way down. And remember, back when we were talking back here for the way up, those were the exact same prices I had, and the different prices I thought were going to have difficulty, which we did at every stop. Again, main equilibrium difficulty, moving up to this area. We didn't quite hit it there. Here, obviously, we have hit it previously a few times. Didn't quite hit it here, but still found support here. Came up to here. We had a nice pump here, though. This was helped externally, and obviously we came up to here, found difficulty at it, and then obviously flipped it and found support. So good, general movement. Again, it would probably look a bit better on daily, as this isn't a true kind of appropriate range. But anyway, I've set that number out. Okay, so that's what I was going to talk about. I think it's time to look at what I was mainly going to talk about. So we'll bring this image up. Okay, let me hide this out of the way so you have to see it. So Jesus, hold on. Let me just get out of the way of the price, or the price action. Okay, so this is one of the algorithms, or setups, if you will. This is a larger time frame. It can be on lower time frames depending on what range you're on. Obviously, in this case, we're on the 4 hour, so a bit of a longer scenario. And basically, just want to point out the way it moves. It's kind of this, it can also be this, basically, which obviously you might recognize that. And also, what is this? MMSM, what does that mean? Market Maker Sell Model. Now, it looks a bit fancy here, and again, there's certain moves, but the general premise is you have this main area which you're coming from with a intermediate point with this high thing, and then you move down. So, but the general move is it moves up and then it moves down. Okay, it moves up, has a little area, moves up and then moves down again. Really bad explanation, horrible. I've completely butchered all that, but it's kind of a general idea. So that's what we have, or that's what I'm pointing out here. This thing. Why am I talking about this? Well, let's now have a look. So, keeping this in mind, I want to go on to the okay, there we go. We're on the right range. I want to go back to here. Okay, I think I looked at it on the daily. Yeah, daily was where I looked at. Okay, so I want to look at this move. Okay. So I want to point this area out for this low, this area, and then I'm going to also point this out, and then I'm going to point this out. This is that. Okay, so if we go back to our handy dandy screenshot. Oh, it's all over the place. You know what? I don't mind it being there. It's not that bad. Okay, so how does this move? In theory, again, this is not financial advice. This is just one of the two setups. There's two setups with they call them algorithms, but it's whatever. It doesn't really matter what you term it. There's the market maker models, and then there's the trending models. So you have a trend, you have this market maker model, and within the price action, you will be in one of these stages. And again, this is it's not something which happens every 2 seconds. It's more of a longer term thing. There are different strategies on different time frames, obviously, but this is more of a longer term thing. So it's not happening every 2 seconds, but it's something to point out still. So if we now look at okay, how do we structure this? In theory, based on these ranges, obviously not financial advice. How do we structure this? How is this supposed to work? So it has a low here to the order block, to breaker block, rejection, fair value gap, liquidity void, whatever. Okay, let's just put these in our head, and then we can hide this again. So now let's go to here. So we have the low rejection block area here. We also have this, and again, this is a bit of a wider range, and it is sitting on this. And you could probably go to the 4 hour and look at this a bit better. We could probably do that actually now. Here we go, low. Yeah, okay, here we go. And again, so you can boil these down because realistically, with this, whoops, I've unsheathed the source there. But you can kind of, again, there are different movements within this. It's not just a simple line up, line down. There are going to be movements. You have to form this. You sit with here. You do this move. You have this gap, and you come down. Remember the, if we actually go look at it again, what was it? It was the low, and again, it doesn't have to be this in theory. But then obviously there's more structure within it. But it's not necessary to look at. So you have obviously the low area, the move up to the where we should have the breaker block area, because the low and the order block are both. So it's kind of a breakaway from the order block, and then you have the breaker block area, and you have this like room thingy, and then you go up to this. This is the main area where you then start to look at. This might be a scenario to come down to, and then you have this kind of final area. Which obviously is this case with this thing, and then obviously you basically finalize here. So you don't necessarily have to follow. Okay, I want to trade this, and then I'm going to stop, and then trade this again. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to trade this and trade this. You kind of, you don't necessarily have to follow it line by line by line. You can go, okay, well, if I recognize this first part of the structure, and you go, okay, well, this is now the high. I'm just going to short to the bottom, if you know what I mean. And in again to now. Start to tie us all together. I've tried to make a story out of this. Okay. You know what? We're actually not doing enough time. 18 minutes on the chart. Actually not bad. Anyway, I've tried to make a story out of this. Trying to make a bit of a performance. So now we can now tie it all together. So let me get rid of all this crap. I think this is. Yeah, why not? I delete everything. Doesn't matter. But remember what I circled. Let's go outside daily so we can see a bit better. But again, on the 4 hour, we will see these. Okay, we have this order block area. We have the low. You can see the order block is a recovery. It's basically, look, we have this move down, immediate move up. So we have this massive gap here, which forms this order block in this area. We also have the low here on 10th of April at 6 p.m. We then move up to breaker block area where we have this kind of consolidation period. We start to move up and continue. And basically, there was 2 areas, if you remember the screenshot. There was the kind of general move on a more intricate level. It was, we had this move, and then we moved up, we had this again, then we had that like 10 shoulder type of looking thing, then we moved down, and we moved down again. So it was kind of like that. So we start to try and kind of cookie cutter this and put it into the mold. We can see all these movements in place. So we have this order block and this low point here. We start to move to the breaker block area, and then once we finally reach up towards the high. So again, I wouldn't trade every move up. I'm like, okay, I'm a long here, and then we start to consolidate. I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna long here, and I'm gonna get out again, and I'm gonna go long here, and I'm gonna go short here, and I'm gonna go long just for the fair value gap, and go short against the EQ, and then I'm gonna go short again. You don't do that. The kind of, again, these are longer term algorithms or setups, and in this case it would be, you don't really, you can't long from here. You don't know what's gonna happen. The more structure is when you see this part form, when you see this happen, basically when it touches here to rejection block, that's when you kind of go, okay, cool, we've hit rejection block. Now it should be down to liquidity void, the opposite, which is now down here at 83.2, down here. So that is the process. I've applied it now, and that's now this is what I'm going to hide. Okay, it's a bit choppy, We'll leave it. So, looks a bit messy. I'm going to go to the daily so we can see it a bit better. And we can see everything. Okay, I've hidden everything. I'm going to hide this range. We don't need it right now. So this is it. This is what we have. Okay. We have the low to the breaker block, which forms. And then we move up. Oh, we've hit the rejection block. You can see if we zoom in. Very nice. Almost, it's about, what is that, like $70, $60 off. A nice rejection block. Just wanted to put this blue area here to it might look ugly, but I'm just showing it. So we've had this move, had this hover, we had a bit of a hover here, but then we've had we've almost had this. And again, remember at the top, what did we see at the market maker sell model? Well, we saw this kind of head and shoulders looking thing. You know, if we go back to it, again. Let's see it. Let's have a look again. So we kind of have this kind of, you know, up, then we have this main move up, and then we kind of move back down again. So this is kind of this head and shoulders scenario. So now if we look back, we kind of have this move, and then we've kind of moved down a bit, and we had this obviously low here. We've moved up to this rejection block. We're now sitting here. We're starting to kind of form this. We haven't fully formed it. Again, this will print and whatnot. So as we print this, it'll probably come back up into it again. And once we start to touch this, and this is kind of where I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to edit this. This is in the wrong place. This should be like here, and then past this to here. This should be a tiny bit more up. But anyway, so you could have entered on the rejection block, and again, you know, I hadn't looked at this time frame on this range in a while, so I hadn't seen this to look at it. But you know, if it was me, again, entering on this period is still very good. The value gap. What's this got going on? Whatever. It's got these two moves down. But a lot of the ideas, it kind of retraces back to where we saw originally. And again, that could happen. But in this kind of setup, it brings us back to liquidity void. And that's, you know, again, I'd rather get out knowing that I've gotten out than not. Okay. So, okay, cool. 84.4, that's one of my prices. Okay. We've got that. We've got 88.5, but I still think we could go lower. Lower than that. Based on this setup, and again, this could be wrong, not financial advice. But again, the similarities are there. The setup is here. I don't want to deny it of anything. Now, what I will also point out is how this price, you know what, let me draw a line at it again. Just let me draw a line at it so I can, and also what's nice about it is that the breaker block, which is formed within here, the midpoint of it which also lines up with the liquidity void area. Now this could be, it could go to the mean threshold, it could go to the middle, so it could be 83.3, but for me, I'd rather be safe than sorry and get out immediately. But again, I'm not saying price has to immediately stop at 84.5, and that's it, we're done. It can go to the midpoint of this area, which is 83.3, and one of these, it could do that, and that's, you know, what I'm also going to point out. So I'm going to draw two lines. I'm going to draw one at this midpoint line, and if we zoom in, we can see there are mini dotted lines to point out, because there is obviously consequent encroachment and means threshold. Basically, it's just midpoints, but this midpoint is a non-go-back level. So basically, the way this is set up is based on a pattern from 0 to 100, and you can see, apart from, you know, every range has the same kind of width. And they have these midpoints, but then there's big ranges for this LV area, and the midpoint is a non-go-back level, which is still very important, just to, you know, give more terminology. So that is that midpoint, just to point that out as well, which is just below this breaker block area. So now if we go to actually show why I'm talking about these, so we've got these two lines now. Which range was it? This range or the other range? I can't remember which range it was exactly. Let's just look at it quickly. It's just redrawing the lines. Okay, let's just wait for it. There we go. Okay, so we have this midpoint, which is this breaker block area. But if we notice, what is this line? And again, these ranges are fractal. A lot of the prices coincide with other ranges. So what is this range? You know, if we look at this, and again, if we go to the one up, which is one of the main ones on the weekly, which we look at, or I look at anyway. Now we look at it. What does this price line up with perfectly? It lines up with the bottom of this equilibrium. So I think we could retrace. I think we could, and again, this also coincides with this big boy here. Which, again, no matter if I'm looking at EQ or not, I do think we can come in to fill this, because this is a massive gap, which is just left, just naked, you know. So I think we can come down to here, and I think obviously in this process it will be down towards this area. And again, this high area. Again, we could, you know, stop earlier. And again, this is why I pointed out 84.4, because this is kind of the main. Okay, we're done now. This is it. We've seen, you know, the entire move. But again, there's other candles on the way down. You know, this, for example, we could we haven't had a wick down from this, so we have this candle to pay attention to. And if we draw a range of this candle, you know, we can see it also lines up, the bottom lines up with this equilibrium here. So I do think we could see these prices. I know they are low. And again, not as financial advice, because there could be something happening. You know, elsewhere in the market which could stop this. So I do want to point that out. Very importantly, actually, you know what? I need to change my colours because this needs to be black. There we go, so we can actually see it. So yeah, anyway, just that was my story. That's my magical fairy dust play. That's my musical of Bitcoin. I thought I would give a nice story to it. So that's what I think is going to happen with Bitcoin. Again, this is a personal opinion and whatnot. Because again, with the setups of this market maker model, these are things which happen over a long period of time. And what happens over a long period of time is it has more chance of things doing other things, whether that be within Bitcoin or outside of the market, which you can't exactly control. Something big in the economy as a whole. It allows for more time for things like this to happen. So again, if you're scalping, it's very rudimentary and it's very structured. It's like, okay, if you're on the 5 minute, if you're on the 15 minute, you find something, go to the 5 minute. This is like, you have to stick to this line no matter what. It's not a lot of interpretation. There's nothing about it. But again, with a large time frame, things can happen and stuff can. Not saying can freakishly go wrong. There has been countless scenarios in the past where things happen outside of the charts, which just make the price not move appropriate to what you might have on the chart. So, obviously, bearing that in mind, I do still think this is a more than righteous move for Bitcoin. That's my opinion. There you go. I've had it. I'm done now. That's my. I feel really nice about that. That's my TED talk. I'm done. Anyway, that's my Bitcoin out the way. I don't know what your guys' opinions on that. If you let it digest. It's like a harsh movie. Credits happen. You just gotta breathe. But give me your opinion, guys. Anyway, I am now gonna move on. Finally, after 30 minutes of charts, to Ethereum. Now, I don't think I have anything drawn on this profile because I wanted light mode because I was getting a bit sick of not doing light mode. So what I'm gonna do. Again, your eyes are going to have to adjust to the darkness. I don't really want to have to do this, but I want to see what I've talked about previously. I think it was on this. I just want to see some lines and stuff. I reckon, you know what? I reckon we'd have to do this. I reckon I could do this all again. I don't know what I've talked about. Let's go back to here. I remember talking about this mainly, though, because I think this was... I have this on. I think the 2187 was the main range we were looking at. Yeah, here we go. So this is... Was it this? Or was it 729 we're looking at? One of them has an equilibrium somewhere, I think. Here we go, yeah. So we're sitting at it now, kind of having difficulty in it. This was... Wait, let me get rid of these quickly, because this is kind of hurting my eyes. That's a bit better. Okay, so this, I think, was a breaker block of sorts, which we used really nicely, which we've now flipped and used as resistance, and now come on all the way down to equilibrium. This obviously was a dump of the world. Everything was going wrong. Had this massive gap, which we came to the midpoint, finished off, came up, and now we're sitting at equilibrium. So again, a very different scenario. I think we had a good period of time on the charts where a lot of things were, a lot of tickers were following each other really nicely in terms of its, general price action and where we were sitting relative to the ranges. I could half shift these. This is something, I could do that. But again, looking at this, it's like, okay, because of the ranges, sometimes what you can do is you can shift them by a half, depending on how the price action is relative. So you can see, basically what you want to see is you want to see trends occur, like the start of a trend or something like that, occur at the high or low. And you can see we're hovering at this line here, and a lot of these hovering at these equilibriums. So if we go back to it, we can see it's not valid because you can see this low, perfect, and we're hovering at equilibrium. Great, this is a good range. So now if we actually apply this, we've got a horrible price action. I'm not gonna lie, this is awful price action. So if we zoom out, we're on the 4. Let's go on daily. I want to see if we have any sort of setup which we can try and recognize, whether that be on the high or the low. It kind of just looks like if we go to the 4 hour, it's just trending downwards. We've actually got a good one here, I think. It's quite hard because it's very far away. It's old. price action. So low here, bang here. I think so. I mean, you know what? I'm not gonna look at algorithms. I'm just gonna do Can I undo that? Never mind. Let's just go back to it. Whatever. Okay. So now, you know what? No, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do that right. I don't like it. It's my brain's not working with it. I'm not doing it. Let's bring ye old friend out. So what are we seeing? Okay, so this is going to be what value is this going to be? Probably probably closer to this one, which I think is very low considering Ethereum, but we can go one range upwards, which I'm going to do, and then which obviously the main one we're using. And if we go back to the daily, which is what we already had. Okay, so doing well. So like I said, so we had this low, and I remember one of the main issues I had was this move, because this was the extension line which kind of stopped us from going above this. So our main issue right now with Ethereum is the fact that we're not even anywhere we should be. This because I remember obviously back when we had this whole move, we were like heavily offset, I think, for Ethereum in terms of how low we were, and relative to what the price should be. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna go one range upwards so we can actually see a bit more of the price. There we go, perfect. So this still kind of shows us, it doesn't necessarily hit the high here, even though it did on the other range, but we still hit this, hit the purple line. So now we're kind of coming back up into it and sitting there. We do have a gap here, which we've already filled, and this inter-price kind of block here, which is of resistance. So I kind of want to look at the main price action of now relative. So let me go back down to the main range. Now we're on the 4 hour. So like I said, so I think in terms of our price action, again, we do have this uptrend. And I think what we do have to take into consideration is Bitcoin's effect on the market and how this kind of cascades. You know, it's like roots of a tree. It kind of just offsets itself everywhere. And I think the effect of us going down towards, if we did, obviously not financial advice, 84k would be really large for the market. So I think I'm going to have to look at this chart in a more negative manner. And what I would say is, relative to the fact that Bitcoin's now, in theory, in the scenario where we should come down to these, you know, big low areas, I think if we look at Ethereum, we go, okay, we've had a huge issue in getting above the equilibrium line here at 1822. We've now tried to get above, we broke down, but we're now holding at this line. So in terms of structurally, it's not doing too badly, or it's not doing horrible, it's not doing great at all. But in terms of the because again, the getting it out of this scenario, it happens frequently on a lot of charts in terms of certain things sitting within equilibrium and going, okay, we're doing this, and then we've broken up, and now we've tried to get above, and now we're holding support here, and then we flip, and then we do this. You know, this can be a big process for charts. And again, I think as we can see with Ethereum, it is no different. So I think if we can see with here, I think we are starting to come down. We haven't kind of broken out these lows. We can see though, if we look at if we just look at the candle bodies for now, we can start to see we're starting to go downwards. And now if we apply this to the lows, we can see we didn't quite print through here with this low, but we can see with this candle we start to print down through the low. So now we're truly in what should be a downtrend. Holding support here though, and again we can kind of see this low, and then we're starting to kind of go up, and then we've had another low roughly until we go back above 1832 and print above it. I wouldn't say we're doing too great, so we'd still be in this kind of downtrend. So if I had to give a guess, the only period where we ever really got above this red line was to find resistance above here. I would wager my bets to say we would probably go down before we go up. We can see we have some of these candles down here. What I do want to go to is a 243 on the 4 hour, just to see if we've got anything of interest, which we do. You can see this is a lot more accurate, and again, remember, obviously with this range, you can see the 243 is on this average weekly range, which is what we should be on anyway. So in Ethereum's case, doing not too badly in terms of sticking with this range. But now if we look at it, it's kind of, you know, it's always kind of all over the place. You know, it's not really getting above. But But what we can see really well is how we are using the equilibrium nicely. And again, like I said, candle bodies is more where it's at in terms of respecting these lines. And you can see candle body right pretty much at the midline, at the upper end, the lower end and the upper end. And then we start to break out and then have these candle bodies on the, you can see this kind of line up here hits all these three lines upwards, and obviously we just absolutely fell below, which is now what we're starting to do in the market. You know, we can see, you know, with Bitcoin we start to fall. Obviously, this big fall, obviously you can see we've started to come to some of these candles down here. This happened in Bitcoin, it's happened in Ethereum, probably will happen in Solana as well. So this kind of broke us out of this chance we had for, you know, this kind of up movement we could have had for Ethereum. So I do think we'll probably be on the way down back towards this area. But you can see with this action, we're not really doing too much on, you know, respectfully. Now I won't use the average daily range because that's more for like the 5-minute, 15-minute time frame. You know, I suppose if we could use it just to have a little quick glance to see what's happening on the 15-minute. So if we look at the daily range, it's the 47. So that's probably closer to the 27. Just want to see like how it's being used. 5 minutes pretty good as well on this. So you can see we start all these movements from this line here, and we're starting a lot of our movements from here. So I will half shift this, just quickly to see what's going on Ethereum on the 15-minute. Okay, cool. So what are we doing? All right, not bad. And this kind of is matching with what we had with the algorithm. If we can see, remember, it had low, it had breaker block, it had up towards here. We kind of have this area here which kind of breaks it out of this trend, and then we're starting to come down here. So if we let me half shift it downwards once so we can actually see some of these prices. So I kind of want to see, because it's hard to see what's exactly going on because we have really bad price action, and all we have on our ranges on the higher end, on the higher time frames, is okay, we're in equilibrium, we're just holding support and resistance where it needs to be, and we can't really see that. So the only reason I'm on 5 minute is to see if we're gonna have a big movement back down towards, you know, back down here for this low. I could definitely see this occurring, obviously depending on if we can form something here, which we haven't done. So this kind of breaks it out, this idea that we're having you remember with that algorithm of going up and down and whatnot, we have bounced with this extension line and come down. So it kind of shows us we aren't breaking above this anytime. So where's the likelihood chance of where we're going to go is probably down back towards, you know, 1809 and so on and so forth. So let's now kind of bring this idea back to, you know, the 4 hour and actually see what we're doing. So I think we are going to come back down towards 1709 and so on. I've half shifted this, haven't I? Yeah, we don't want to do that. So now if we bring that idea back to reality, this basically brings us back towards the lower end of the equilibrium. I do think we can come back down to here. If we're going to break up or break down, I do think we'll break down. So this will most likely bring us towards this outer rim. So at least going towards the outer rim of this range. I want to see quickly on 243 on this range, because this is the weekly range number. Has it changed? No chance. Is it actually? Oh, this is what I was using already, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. So you can see, like, again, going back to this idea that we're stuck below equilibrium. Likely the chances we're going to go back down towards 1809. Not too much of it has to come even lower towards, you know, past this low down here. So I do think we'll have a nice move down, continuous for Ethereum. To continue to see some of these lows, probably back towards, maybe towards the low of this candle, at least towards the low here. So I do think we'll come down for Ethereum, regardless if Bitcoin's coming down or not. I would expect a bit more of a move down. I would wait to see, you know, obviously depending on what this does, there's no, you know, fair value gap or anything like that. In terms of breaker block, there's not really much here I can see. I do want to go to the daily quickly though, just to see what we're doing on the daily, because that's what I looked at for Bitcoin as well. Yeah, pretty shoddy. Not actually got out of anything significant yet. A lot of these lows are down here, so it'd be interesting to see if we have any sort of trend. But to be fair, the daily you probably wouldn't be looking at that anyway. Let me shift this one up so we can actually see it on the daily a bit better. There we go. Yeah. So again, sitting in this equilibrium. this brings us towards 1755. I do think we have this massive candle here, and if we look at the candle is still within this gap area, so I would actually draw a little gap here. I'll actually use purple for these, so we'll do that. What? I didn't change at all. Oh, I didn't change it, that's why. Oh, I've missed purple twice. Oh my god. Keep clicking the wrong things. There we go, perfect. So yeah, I would probably bring us back into this area. If we were aiming towards midpoint, it'd be 1700. But at that point, you'd be below these lows. So I probably wouldn't, looking at what we have, especially with these candle body prints, we don't really have, I don't really think we have much opportunity of going higher towards these areas. Even if we do, and we look at some of these areas back here, we can see that we have this kind of thing here. And what this is, because you can kind of see with a breaker block, you have to form it as an order block here. We have to see how an order block form. We have to see the order block form, and then you flip it. So we haven't actually seen that with this. You can see we formed it, went straight down. So I'm not surprised we use this resistance. So we have equilibrium, this kind of order block scenario. We also have this into candle because it has a gap, and then it has these two things here, which line up as a resistance area. So we have a lot of resistance where we are for Ethereum. I don't think we'll get up. So I think if we were to come down, probably coming towards this area, and if we come towards midpoint of the gap, by then if we're printing down here, again that's what matters, we'd be below these lows anyway, and at that point we'd be downtrend territory. Obviously, it depends on if we with this gap, the idea is you'd come down and then you go back up because you've filled it. So unless we do, we kind of have this scenario where you have kind of like a head and shoulder scenario, maybe coming back up to here, something like that, kind of just drawing out of nowhere there. But there's reason behind the madness. But I think if I was to, I don't want to worry about where we're going to go from here. I'd rather worry about if we're going to go down to it. And I reckon looking at hedging my bets, if you will, I think we'll probably retrace back down towards this area for this candle, massive candle here. So that's what I'd probably want to pay attention to for Ethereum. And I think, again, depending on, we've got 4 hours left of the day. Are we going to really see a move down towards below the equilibrium? We could do. I think we're sitting in a scenario where we are below equilibrium. And just looking at the daily, it doesn't necessarily, again, massive candle bodies, or massive wicks with little candle bodies here especially. It's again, it's not like it's massive candles moving up in a massive trend. It's really shoddy action. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a reversal soon back to coming down. Again, this kind of also aligns with the idea of what we have for Bitcoin. So I would probably hedge my bets against Ethereum coming downwards. And if I had to, again, once you've figured that out, if you're going up and down, where are you going to go to? I think the logical area on the daily anyway, again, this is kind of what I'm looking at, is going to be towards this gap. And obviously midpoint is just somewhere to aim. It's a midpoint is somewhere to look at. So it could be a wick towards 1720. I think as long as we go past this low and we print, that's kind of a bit more kind of confirmation that we're okay, cool, we've printed below this low now, we're not in an uptrend or anything like that anymore. I think we'll have a big candle downwards and seeing where we're going to go through this kind of gap here. But yeah, but even if then, like looking at this, actually hold on, let's kind of compare this move. So how much does it move this? This is kind of a 6.3, which I know percentages are not going to be exactly the same. I don't know what I was on. I think I was on this. Yeah, okay. So comparing this, it's very similar to a midpoint bounce for Bitcoin. Again, they're different coins, so you can't really exactly compare percentages. But if we were to look at a deeper fall for Ethereum, just to kind of give an idea of if we were to fall below this gap, if we were to even come to the low of it, this is getting towards 9%, close to the 10% Bitcoin had for the full fall. So I think it definitely sits within this area down here for this area for this gap of this candle to fall for Ethereum. So I do think Ethereum will fall soon. Just my opinion anyway. I'll bring the chat up in front of me to see. I kind of aimed for 15 minutes on Ethereum, so I can do 15 minutes on Solana. So I've hit the 15-minute mark for Ethereum, so I will probably move on to Solana soon. KB, let me actually I'll scroll past. I see some other things. I missed a lot as I'm in a feature film shoot in a remote area. That I heard that this is sick, Kishan. You know what? Doing numbers Crypto Man. Really, really cool that is. It doesn't matter if you miss anything, man. You're busy doing something amazing, so do not worry about that. I'm scrolling a bit more. Maybe war will affect market. Yeah, I think in general, anything negative, which doesn't just affect Bitcoin's lagging and it's made the price go down 2k. It's like, okay, there's a war in this place. That will definitely bring a lot of things down. I'm just scrolling a bit more. Interested in seeing how the daily closes. Is that on Bitcoin? If it is, yeah, because again, this daily close is what forms this gap, and or for me anyway, is what forms this gap, which then continues on with the structure I have, which leads to us coming down towards 84k. So yeah, again, it does realistically matter. If we have a massive wick or massive move upwards, which results either a wick or a body, which fills this gap, it kind of breaks out of this idea that we've formed a fair value gap. Because remember, let's just go to it. I don't know why I'm making you remember anything, Let's just hide this for now. So yeah, this is kind of what it was. Remember, if we bring the image back up, which shows it, we can remember low, order block, breaker block, rejection block. So it's kind of one line upwards, again with different processes in it. Because the idea is it's kind of in the way now. The idea is it has this massive wobble and then absolutely shoots up above it, and then kind of it clears not just this area, because obviously it forms one up here, but other areas in the background. This area, it breaks and just kind of sweeps them. It's kind of the idea of the market maker sell model is it's a massive run upwards to break some of these highs and then come back down to area, because again all these are going to be sell. So once you see these, this is then obviously we've now hit the scenario where, okay, cool, we've hit where we should stop now, and now we're coming down. So then going back to the image, the last steps are fair value gap to liquidity void. So if we go back to actually applying it to the chart, we can see this candle is what will form this gap, and if we bring the range back upwards to show this, we can see obviously we're forming it right now, but it is obviously, this is the fair value gap range. We're forming one here. Again, the daily is very important to see, because again, if we have a massive move upwards towards 95.8, this breaks that completely. So unless we have kind of a candle upwards, candle down, and then another candle down, and then a candle up, that could work. But it's not really going to follow the structure anymore of, okay, once we've hit this, we should then come up. Because again, the idea of the sell model is that it kind of forms a head and shoulders and then brings you back down. I mean, a lot of like chart patterns is a resultant of a process in price action. Whether they be right or wrong, obviously, is a different story. And again, I think there's a lot of convoluted price action, or a lot of convoluted chart patterns, which might not necessarily happen all the time. But I think there are general, like head and shoulders, I think there's general... there are general price action models like head and shoulders which are true to what actually happens. Because again, why is the price moving a certain way? Well, there's reason behind why the price is moving. Normally for an incentive to do something, whether that be, again, this market maker sell model. Okay, they want to run the price up to get all these highs and then come back downwards again to recover. Because again, you don't want to stay in this forever. This is obviously trying to map out that process. So again, like I said, it is forming this head and shoulder process. So it could happen over a few candles. It could be, it could be a candle or two up back towards 95.8 area, let's say, or it could be to the midpoint, 95.5 or 95.3. But I definitely think once we start to see this come down and get out of this gap, I do think it'll be a nice move downwards back towards liquidity void and obviously breaker block, which gives about 11% move down for Bitcoin, which is obviously quite large. Again, not financial advice in the slightest. I'd like to see a retracement. However, I'm looking to long Bitcoin once I get the trigger. Long from here, yeah. If I was to long again, it would. And again, this is why it's so important, because again, if the structure breaks, or if this kind of process breaks, then there's no point in getting into it because it's broken. So again, yeah, if the candle comes up. And like it comes up to 95.6 and there's no gap really, then there's no point of it's not valid anymore. So it could completely reverse and just not do any of this. But I think, you know, in general anyway, especially for Ethereum, knowing what we looked at, and I think Bitcoin as well, looking at some of these highs, and if we go to, this might have, I mean, it might not look too good on daily because it's a smaller range. Yeah, this range is not too good on the daily because it's not, you know, it's not too great, but it's better on the, actually, what range is this on? Yeah, so you can see the weekly range, which is roughly where you go on like the 4 hour. It's, you know, it's not bad. But the general idea was, the reason I was going on to this is, you know, okay, we're kind of hovering in between equilibrium, like I said, you know, bottom of equilibrium area, top, kind of hovering here especially, obviously came up of all these highs, came up and then came down again to sit back in this range. So, you know, it could be that again, sit back in this range. But again, what if we do see, you know, whether you know, chart patterns or not, if we do see this kind of, I mean, it's very rough price action, but if you maybe draw it, I mean, again, there's a lot of wicks. If you're just going off candle body though, you could probably draw it to there, and then it kind of comes back up to here, and then here. But it's kind of a general process. It kind of looks more like that, so it's not kind of a true to thing, but you have this in here, which is this move like that, which kind of forms this. So the next step would then be, if we were to kind of map that, it matters more on, okay, if this is our wick, then the next step would be this right shoulder, and then what it confirms through that kind of breakthrough. So yeah, that's what I'll be waiting for. But yeah, I agree in terms of if it does kind of get out of this and it doesn't form this, then I completely, you know, would not pay attention to any of this. But again, obviously it's up to interpretation. I will go on to, I've got 7 minutes. How have I talked? Bitcoin's a time sink. Solana, okay, so I obviously will not have any T on Solana either. So I don't really want to have to go on dark mode because I don't really like looking at it. It's just like, it's ugly to me. It's just a bit like ugly. I want to see what the ranges are like though. These are gonna be really low though. It's not gonna be this. That's for sure. But well, it might be again. It depends on what's, you know. Actually, on. Why are these so low? Why is it 45? Oh, to be fair, it makes sense why it's 45. To be fair. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I don't know. I was gonna hit this. I think it needs to do that, so it's not as awful. Okay. So you can see again, it's kind of another scenario where we kind of have oh, it just reprinted. Whoops. There we go. That's why I was wrong. Because look, like yeah, you have to. It gets calculated differently depending on what you're doing. So let's go back to actually looking at this properly. So if we look at this, so that's 45. So that's going to be closer to 27 probably. So I want to see how applicable this is, and if it's any good. And then go back to the 4 hour. Is this really small? Might have to go range up or range down. There we go. Okay, so it looks pretty bad. Kind of choppy. Similar to Ethereum. To be fair, though, Bitcoin's kind of similar as well because we had that equilibrium. Obviously, Ethereum is at equilibrium as well. Bitcoin also kind of had it as well with on the 6561, where it was doing this, and then it obviously had that move. Obviously, in this case, it's kind of having this down move here, but kind of similar. I want to kind of look at what we've done previously because we had this low back here, and I do want to go range upwards so we can start to see this. I think it might have been 2431 or something like that for the equilibrium. It might not have been this. What range are we on? I might have to go on the other one. I can't remember what range we're on or anything like that. For that, I think because we were sitting down here, we had a really nice equilibrium. You know what? I don't have to do it, but I've already got my stuff drawn on this. I don't want it to be too ugly, but you know, you'll have to do it. Okay, here we go. So what have we got going on? Okay. I do have raw calc on, to be fair. Yeah, it was here. Yeah, this was it. Yeah, because we had the difficulty up here, and then we had this massive gap for this breaker block. This entire thing's a breaker block. I remember talking about the idea that once we see resistance at it and then we flip it, it'll be good support and we continue onwards. Yeah, I remember that. So we're kind of sitting on top of equilibrium, on the height of this equilibrium here, on the 243. Doing pretty well. We do have some other areas here which we obviously have different equilibriums on the lower ranges, which we are kind of sitting at as well. Obviously we just saw the 27.1 as well, which we're kind of hovering in between. A bit of difficulty there, but then obviously if we look at the wider range, we're sitting at the upper rim of the equilibrium, which we've seen a few times. Definitely resistance here, jaggedy here, not really great price action. This is obviously, you know, massive outside of the chart, but to actually look at just normal price action, you know, I think we'll probably use this as pretty good support here. But you know, we do have to bear in mind with what could happen again. Obviously, not financial advice with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Obviously, it wouldn't really make sense. Obviously, and there hasn't been, you know, a non-zero scenario where Solana hasn't done something opposite to everything else. But still, you'd kind of expect it to move with the market, and if that is down, then obviously we're going to have to pay attention to where is that going to be. We had this gap already kind of used here, so I'm going to delete this because it's already been used. So now if we, I kind of want to go a range down though, even though we're on the 243, I do want to go to the lower one, just to see what we've got going on. Here we go. Yes, we've got this equilibrium sitting at this area up here. We've already used this gap, so not really much there to talk about there, and then we kind of come down to this breaker area. Now if we look at we can probably pay attention to this. We can see we came up, and this is within it, came up and then came down and recovered it, and then we came up again. So we kind of have this this fulfillment, if you will, of I think candle bodies are probably better to look at. Actually no, I think wicks work. Actually candle bodies, we're on daily to be fair as well. So, and this is a lower range, so we can kind of see this is sitting at the bottom rim of breaker block. So we do have this which we've formed, which is negative, which then became positive. We can see a little wick there at the midpoint, so we do have this positive. So we do have support down there, which obviously also sits at equilibrium down here. We do have this resistance. We are also sitting in this bigger resistance, which is here. We've come back past this high, which has kind of come up, and then now we're starting to come down again. So I could probably expect this to have this. It's black. I know you can't really see it too much, but trust me, there's a line here, which, you know, comes up. We've come past this high, and now we can probably start to see a downwards movement from here. I could expect back towards the equilibrium we've seen back here to 120. Also paying attention to what the market could be doing, which is pretty negative. Again, I think, not to try and be biased from Bitcoin, but, you know, what could be happening with Bitcoin, I definitely do want to, not trying to fit square peg round hole, but at the same time, I don't not want to say, okay, Bitcoin, Ethereum, pretty negative. You know, Ethereum's got multiple resistances and equilibrium, and it's got areas below it, and we're starting to turn in terms of, we haven't truly printed below our low in terms of breaking structure, but we're starting to see that structure potentially break. Obviously, Bitcoin's case, we do have this whole structure, which is this market maker model, which could bring us down really low. So I don't want to say those two things are really bad, and then Solana, oh yeah, definitely coming towards $170. You know, a $170 wick for the 162 high. I don't want to say that, you know. So I do want to, you know, and you can clearly see we are in this equilibrium, finding resistance quite nicely. We have already come towards this kind of massive block area, which we've seen resistance here, kind of come deeper into it again, resistance. So I do think we will come down a bit more for Solana. We are at this non-GB level, holding it, but it's not, you know, anything special. I do think we'll come below it. This is going to be support. This is also equilibrium down here, so I do think we could probably see a trek downwards for Solana, and come down. You know, but again, technically, in terms of our structure, you know, we have seen a lower high, and now we're coming down. Technically this wick would be our low. We have to print through it, so we technically haven't come below that. But you can definitely start to see the trek of a downwards movement. But you know, obviously chart pattern, whatever. You know, coming from this low, this would be a big move if it would be to do that. But I do think it'd be a bit more I'm a bit more negative than that. I don't think it's going to kind of magically come upwards. It does depend on what we do with this movement down here. But, you know, if we kind of look at this, to be fair though, if we look at the wider range, or the wider movement, we've had a massive move downwards. And again, this low was lower. I remember talking about this at the time. You can see this thing. I'm going to hide this because it's massively in the way of what I'm looking at. You can kind of see we've had a massive trend downwards. And you can see we've come up above it. So you'd think this is kind of a reversal head and shoulders. So although I'm negative, you can kind of see we could probably expect something like that. And this is kind of a wider thing to look at. What I'm interested in seeing in seeing is if we do have if we go to the range upwards, which is what we were using, I want to see if we have the structure of we haven't come to this low. That would, I mean, obviously we can't quite do that, can we? Because this is 2 for free. Do I have that thing clicked? I do. How bad is it? Does it actually change too much? Yeah, it's awfully bad. So I won't do that. If we go to the 81, I could half shit. If we look at the, yeah, I'm looking at this. I think we could probably see, have a little look to see if we can half shift this, just to see if it aligns with what we've got going on. In terms of seeing us come from this low, form this block here, and then what are we on now? 81. I'll go 203. Oh no, I just looked at 2 for frame. Stupid. Never mind, we can't look at that. I want to see if we had this kind of structure of coming down, seeing this, wicking, having this high up here, and then coming back to a gap. We don't quite have a gap though, but regardless, you know, I just want to see if we had that. I could go to the 4 hour though and see if we've got anything here. We do have a mini gap we've already kind of used though. To be fair though, hold on, let me have a look. Because if we remember the model, it has this move, and then it comes down, and it has a hoverage, and then it has another hoverage, and then it comes down again. So, but in this case, obviously, it would be buy, so it would come upwards. So I suppose on the 4 hour you can kind of see that, but on the daily, you know, we haven't had that. So I reckon we could come down, but I reckon as a resultant of that, we could see positive movement back upwards. And again, I don't think this is too negative for the markets. Again, in Bitcoin's case, if we look at, remember on the weekly, it was just the fact that we had that massive candle, and we could probably come down to go into it and then come back upwards again. So I don't necessarily think it's all a bad thing. And if we look on the higher time frames, we're not necessarily in a scenario where we're in some sort of magical downtrend. In terms of obviously the weekly case, you know, we're definitely not in an uptrend, obviously. So in terms of the weekly, you'd think, okay, well on the weekly, what are we trying to look for? We're trying to look for a scenario where we're going to stop at resistance and then come down to form another lower low. But I don't think we're going to do that. I think it would be a higher low, and then it's a break from this high, and then you move on upwards. So you know, to think about that, technically we are still in this downtrend, so I wouldn't necessarily say I mean, I'm trying to think of where this starts from. If you look, it kind of is this whole move, which is massive. So I think the whole thing would be, we'd have to have a stop here, which is where we've had a considerable move upwards on the weekly anyway. Let me hide this so we don't have to see it. If we move down, we've had a considerable move upwards relative to obviously how much downwards we've had. Considerable move upwards. This could be the high. Obviously, doing a higher low could be this 128 point here, and then moving back upwards to print above 156. It could be, okay, cool, now we're in an uptrend, which would then have this, you know, just the start of effect of, okay, we're not really going to be too negative anymore for the market, and then we'll be moving upwards. So, you know, even though I'm thinking, personal opinion, that this is, you know, we're not in a good scenario for the charts as a whole, and I think we're going to go downwards, I still think the resultant on the long term will be positive. So, yeah, anyway, I've yapped. It's like, I've streamed for like nearly an hour and a half. No, an hour and 5-6 minutes. So nearly kept it on the hour dot, because obviously I do talk a lot. But I think that'll pretty much do it. I'm going to finish off with just leaving on the Bitcoin weekly chart. So if we go to it quickly. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to hide this, and then unhide this. There we go. Yeah. So again, you know, it's like on the weekly we're doing well. You know, we're going. It would just be a little like wick downwards relative to the scale. It would just be a little move downwards, a little wick downwards in this candle, a little wick downwards, and then move upwards. You know, it's not, you know, it's not bad. And obviously, you know, if someone uses chart patterns, we've kind of got a, you know, a thing which brings us upwards a bit. And obviously, if you remember one of the ranges, I think it was this one. It's kind of it's a bit low, to be fair. But this is probably relative. Where is it? There we go. This kind of brings us towards equilibrium in the next range. So, you know, just putting that out there. Yeah, I'm not gonna look at that too heavily. Yeah. Anyway, back on the weekly. Yeah. So let me hide that. I do think yeah, I don't think it's too crazy to say we could have that move down, but again, we will see what happens. Yeah, we will see what happens. I'll type quickly. There we go. So that's, I think, about it for the charts. Thank you for joining and watching the stream. It's been a while since I've done a chart stream. Obviously, I have looked at Bitcoin and whatnot on Friday streams, and you know, I have done charts in the process, but you know, it's been good. I'm trying. It's like 10, 12 now. I'd normally do it at 5 p.m. But I had to do it a bit later today, so it's a bit more time. But I've missed doing the trading streams. There is a I'm not on Binance, so I can say it. I have kind of been in talks with Pumpkin. It's a streaming platform for not so official charts. You know, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. It's not a not saying prestigious, not undermining other coins, but it is a streaming platform where you kind of look at kind of heavy altcoins, aka meme coins. Okay, so I will be doing streams there. I can't cross it because what my plan was, I was like, okay, I'll just stream what I normally do, but on that platform as well. Happy days. But obviously they want you in their platform. They want you to look at things that they provide to sell and whatnot, and or they provide in exchange for like meme coins. And it's just like, you know, I didn't want to, because like today I was like, okay, I was going to stream on that platform and YouTube, but I didn't, you know, I couldn't stream, you know, Bitcoin, and I wanted to do the Bitcoin chart, as you know, it's been a while since I've done the stream, and I wanted to come back with, you know, the main thing. And obviously, like 10 minutes before the stream, I'd set up the thing that I hadn't looked at in ages, and then obviously looked at it, and I saw what could be that setup. Okay, I want to look at this. I really badly want to look at this. So I didn't want to not do Bitcoin. So I will probably do that, not, you know, in the times I normally stream. So you know, I'll probably send a link in the Telegram if you want to check it out. If you're someone who looks at, you know, meme coins, I'll be starting to do a bit more archaic, because the trading system, or the chart system they have, it's like it built into the app. You don't have any indicators or anything like that, so I'll have to draw the ranges manually, but nonetheless it'll still be there. And if you're someone who likes meme coins, or just wants to have a break from Bitcoin and see me do something other than Bitcoin, I will be trying to stream over there with some meme coins. So, you know, enjoy that. It might be a short-lived thing, seeing if there's a good reception of it or not, but you know, it is a good platform though. I just wish you could do Bitcoin on it, because you basically join it's basically this massive like Twitter space, and you can see me draw the chart live integrated into it, and you can like it's a bit more interactive than just YouTube. So it's, you know, it's a bit it's a really cool platform. I just, you know, I would like to do Bitcoin on it, you know, so that's my one issue with it. But again, you know, I do want to stream on it. I don't mind having to just stream meme coins. I don't really do meme coins too much, but again, obviously we'll give it a try. If we're, you know, gonna work, if me and Pumpkin, obviously Chris Warehouse and Pumpkin, are gonna, you know, work together. So I will send a link in Telegram if you guys just want to check it out. I will tell you guys when I am streaming on there. But other than that, I've talked long enough on this stream, and I do think it's time to release you of the shackles of this stream. So thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you, KB. Shout out to you, man. I'm glad to be back, and yeah, I'm gonna update this with what I'm gonna try to do for the next stream. I'm gonna get all the stuff, because after a while your chart gets a bit messy, and I don't really keep my chart fresh, you know. So I'll just get these random lines everywhere and all this stuff, and it just kind of like, I just don't like it anymore. So I like to have a new look. And I understand the last theme for the chart was a lot darker. Hopefully it's a bit more clear on the screen, because it was white and black. It was a lot harder to see. So hopefully it's a bit clearer now. And I'll be starting to port over my chart, so I can talk a bit more on Solana and Ethereum on, not having to jump in between different themes and whatnot. So yes. Anyway, thank you. I'll release you off the stream. I will see you guys. I think we might be doing something Wednesday. If not, I'll be on Friday. But also, not only am I going to be back on Friday, I will be doing these streams during the week on Pumpkin. So I'll send the links over today. You don't have to sign up. Obviously, you can make an account. I think you can comment. You might be able to comment without an account, but again, whatever. You'd have to make an account or anything. You can just come join and watch it if you do want to. So that will be during the week as well, not necessarily Monday and Friday, because I want to keep these streams, because I do want to do Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, and keep to these coins and everything like that. But I will be doing that. Hello, Tariq, and goodbye, Tariq. Nice to see you. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. See you guys next time. Shout out to you all. Appreciate you all. Goodbye.